Welcome back to another episode. Today we're going to take a quick look at TMC, some of the new products, some of their customers receiving some of their new products, and also how big their market share is at the moment. We're also going to take a quick look at Meta. They did announce a recent store, which is pretty interesting, and they also announced new updates to their overall technology. Next, we're going to take a quick look at some of the consumer products in forms of laptops and phones due to the overall lockdowns happening in China at the moment. And finally, we're going to take a quick look at one of my favorite companies, Nvidia. There are some online reports about their new product. So let's get started. If this is your first time here, make sure to hit the thumbs up, make sure to hit the subscribe button, check out the pinned comment for free Discord, free newsletter, and a lot of great investing links. All right, so the first thing we're going to take a quick look at is TSMC founder and kind of the negative comments he has for the overall kind of plan that the United States is doing here to build or bring more onshore chip making capacity. And one of the important things that they mention is just the overall price point for making chips here in the United States is just not feasible. So Morris Chang, who is the founder and former chairman and CEO of TSMC, was a guest at a kind of a think tank that was happening. And he kind of mentioned a bit about Intel's plan to kind of expand their chip making possibilities here in the United States as a wasteful, expensive exercise in futility. And there are two reasons why he mentions this, right? First is the lack of manufacturing talent, and second is the overall cost. TSMC does have a manufacturing plant here in the United States. They have one in Washington State, and they mentioned manufacturing chips here in the United States is 50% more expensive than in Taiwan. Chang also says that Taiwan has a big advantage over the US, a large manufacturing workforce that no longer exists here in the United States. But he does have some nice things to say about the United States. He says he thinks that there are the best design chip talents in the world are still here, like Apple, AMD, and Nvidia. And he mentions that he believes Taiwan has very little design talent and TSMC has absolutely none. Next, I wanted to take a quick look at this pie chart from TrendForce, and I know how many of you guys love pie charts, but we can see for 2021 foundry revenue, TSMC made up 53% of total revenue, 64% of total revenue came from Taiwan. No other players is anywhere near TSMC's level. If we take a quick look at 2022 forecast, Taiwan is expected to be 66% of total revenue, and TSMC is expected to grow to 56% of total market share for foundry revenue. So this is a huge monster. Finally, we are taking reports that some of the first customers for TSMC's 2nm manufacturing node will be Apple and Intel, and the 2nm is super far away. That's not till 2025, but it is pretty interesting to see Intel on the top of the list here, especially since they're really focusing on being a competitor for TSMC. Again, these are just online reports. It obviously makes sense for Apple to be one of the alpha customers here. I mean, Apple really wants to make sure that their iPhones or all their other kind of tablets and consumer goods are lead technology, and the best way to do that is making sure you are running on the lead nodes. So pretty interesting to see Apple and Intel on that list. I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video, and keep listening for this great offer we have for the community. The Motley Fool is a company that provides investing insight and stock recommendations for investors of all skill sets and risk levels. You all know how much I love researching new stocks and trying to find the next best investments. So I'm proud to partner with the Motley Fool to bring you a discount for one of my favorite services the Fool offers, the Motley Fool Stock Advisor. Go to fool.com/Jose to sign up and get access to a ton of expert stock picks. Every month you'll get 2 new picks that are aimed at growing your wealth and to help you realize your financial goals. Stock Advisor has been a market-beating service, so what are you waiting for? Thanks again for the Motley Fool. Now on to today's points. Next, I want to take a quick look at Meta Platforms. They are opening their first retail store next month. This kind of gives me a little bit of Apple Store vibes, but the first store that they're opening up is going to be on their campus in California, so it's not going to be a place with heavily traffic. I do want to say that in the future, it seems like they are open to opening up kind of Meta stores where they can showcase their virtual reality Oculus platforms. For those not familiar, Meta also has a lot of other hardware like the Portal, which is used for like family video conferencing, And they're most likely working on other things like the sunglasses, and with the overall investments that they're doing here in augmented and virtual reality, we can probably see a little bit more hardware coming out from Meta. Not sure how I feel about that. Obviously, hardware comes with lower margins compared to advertising. Some recent news about Meta: they also kind of increased their hand tracking for their Oculus Quest. And this might seem like a small feature, right? You might be like, hey, Jose, hand tracking is not really that cool of technology, but the overall precision that they're kind of having now is a lot better than they had in the past. And with precision in hand movement, it can kind of open up new possibilities of new games and just new kind of situations that can come in Oculus VR or Quest VR. For example, just a quick example, Jenga VR, for example. If you have very low precisions in hand tracking, that's not a game that you would be able to make, because it would kind of be a bad experience. Finally, Meta is expected to report earnings later this week, so make sure to keep an eye on that. Now I want to jump back into the semiconductor market. ASML, this is a company we talked about in earnings last week, but I just want to give a quick update. Hey, during the earnings call, something I don't believe I mentioned was that only 60% of the chip making tool orders can be met this year. I think that is insane. It kind of just shows that the semiconductor market is here to stay in form of this shortage for at least a few more years. This is a company that in theory does not have to make any new sales because they are already kind of meeting capacity. They can only meet 60% of their orders at the moment, and they are kind of focusing and kind of overall increasing that capacity over time. Kind of moving more into the consumer market, there has been a nice amount of shutdowns happening in China due to new COVID fears happening in the area, and this is kind of affecting laptop components and intensifies the shortage. I do want to say, even though this seems like negative news, there is, I want to say, some positive behind it. In the past quarter, we've seen kind of a slowdown in consumer spending in the laptop market, as we saw from Micron Technologies. So this kind of slowdown can overall be used to kind of build that kind of demand again. So if there was a perfect time for I want to say labor shortages to happen in the consumer market, I do think now's the time when kind of the demand is slowing down a bit. Another thing that was shocking is there are online reports that Apple is upping their iPhone kind of production by about 10%. And again, this is pretty weird, as we're kind of seeing consumer spending decreasing, or we're hearing talks about it. But at the same time, you have Apple, a big player in the consumer market. You want to say probably the lead in the consumer market, is upping their iPhone 13 Pro and their iPhone 13 Pro Max production by about 10%. And this is expected to happen during the second quarter of 2022. So again, very interesting to see how the consumer space is really wild right now, with one place we're seeing that consumer spending is decreasing, another place we're seeing consumer spending increasing or demand increasing over time. The final thing I want to take a quick look at is Nvidia. This is, again, my favorite company right now. This is a stock that's down over 40% from its all-time highs. And there is a lot of fears. First, we're hearing things about consumer spending. Second, we're kind of seeing the worries of their graphics cards not selling as much. And just third, just the overall macroeconomics and kind of shortage happening. And I do want to say probably the overall competition from AMD and kind of Intel, sort of maybe a little bit here and there with their Arc GPUs, which haven't really come out but kind of came out. Very tricky there. And first, we can see that some of their graphics cards are kind of falling back to MSRP prices. For example, the GeForce RTX 3090 Ti, which MSRP is at $2,000, has pretty much zero inflation. It is sitting at around $2,000. You also have, for example, the 3080 Ti, which is $1,200, and the lowest price in April was kind of $1,210, kind of by a report made by TechSpot, and that's only a 1% inflation. I do want to say the ones that are closer to their MSRP prices are the cards that are super expensive. And again, like, I guess this bodes with the overall consumer spending decreasing. Consumers are not going to spend a lot of money on high expensive items at the moment, and we're seeing it here with the graphics card. But we are seeing that the lower price cards are still super expensive. Most of them are over 20% their MSRP prices. And there's numerous things to kind of think in here. First, the GeForce 3000 has been out for numerous months already, right? And you would expect prices to actually decrease over MSRP prices. So them even kind of being next to MSRP prices at the moment, I think is still pretty impressive, still positive for the overall kind of GPU market. The second thing I do want to say is AMD and all these big players, Nvidia, are expected to release their new graphics cards or announce new announcement later this year about the next generation of cards. So it could also mean that some of these big players are also just overloading all the inventory that they have, which is kind of decreasing the peak prices. But as we're seeing, peak prices are still above MSRP. Finally, there are reports that Nvidia's next generation of GPUs will have a node advantage over AMD's next generation GPU. So where AMD is expected to use TSMC's 5 nanometer and 6 nanometer processor node, Nvidia is expected to use kind of their 4N. This is not their 4 nanometer. This is just an improved version of the 5 nanometer node. And the main reason is Nvidia really wants to do some form with power efficiency. There have been online reports that their new GPUs are going to be a little bit power hungry. So I'm guessing they want to make sure that they're kind of utilizing that power and being as efficient as possible. So again, all these are reports at the moment. It's still very early. We still haven't heard any concrete information from AMD or Nvidia about their next generations and when they are going to be released. But I do believe the semiconductor market is still in a very healthy space, and one that I do enjoy buying at these price points when stock prices have dropped down where price points have dropped down considerably. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Take care, have a good day, and see you next time.